What's up, everybody? Ghost Girl 007 here. In today's video, we're going to have a haunted reads. Right now, we're reading I Am Haunted, Living the Life Through the Dead by Zach Bagans. Right now, we're on page 20, chapter 25, page 188. This page is called Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. What you don't know can hurt you. When we came up with the concept to do a live paranormal investigation at the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum on Halloween night, there was a ton of obstacles for us to overcome. How could we examine evidence quickly and thoroughly on the spot? I said that wrong, but oh well. How could we broadcast a live event without the equipment and people getting in the way? Because a live event would certainly involve a larger crew. Could we really sustain a 7-hour event? Was there any place for Aaron to eat in Weston, West Virginia? How many times would Aaron fart on live TV? How would I edit that out? A lot of the variables that are under my control in a regular lockdown would be uncontrollable in a live event. So it was going to take some creative thinking to pull it off. I saw this as a challenge and took it on as a mission, but my biggest worry was getting a migraine. Oh, he's talking about a headache. Okay. At the time, I was suffering from massive migraines that would last for 1 to 2 days and would be triggered by any number of crazy things. A migraine would really slow me down, so I was worried that one would kick in at the exact wrong moment. 4 days before the event, we arrived in Weston to get ready for the show, and I remember worrying every day, when will the migraine kick in? At the time, they were so bad that I knew I wouldn't be myself if I got one. I wouldn't be able to think clearly and talk right. This was a 7-hour live event with millions of people watching, and I had to not just lead it, but make it meaningful and memorable. Doing that would be impossible with a migraine, so the pressure to avoid one was absolutely massive. We did research and walkthroughs and set up a ton of equipment. I think we had 40 remote camera operators and 6 production trucks. It was like NASA and I was Snake Plissken in Escape from New York. The pressure was on, and I knew that if I got a migraine, I would be in a fog and wouldn't be able to speak or work. I wouldn't be myself. I live in Vegas and see people do live shows on the Strip every night, and I think they must be in perfect health to perform so often. During the investigation, I wore an earpiece the whole time, with our award-winning producer Bruce Kennedy on the other end. Bruce is amazing to work with, and he kept me on a strict timeline by telling me when to wrap up a particular segment, when to go to commercial, when to go to the front door of the asylum to bring in new guests, when to go to Dave at the nerve center to talk about new evidence, when any problems arouse, etc. All this while leading a live paranormal investigation and maintaining our credibility. I've never done live TV before, so to jump into it for the first time with a 7-hour show with several more hours of interviews afterward was a huge accomplishment for me. Nick, Aaron, the production staff, and everyone else involved except for one. I wanted to bring in guest investigators for an hour to add to the experience. We brought in Mark and Debbie Constantino, who are awesome investigators and EVP specialists. We also brought in one of the leading psychic mediums, Chris Fleming, and some fans, including Kelly Cringer, who helped me write this book and my previous one, Dark World. Kelly got locked in a seclusion cell at the asylum and heard the creepiest disembodied scream ever. Around the 4th or 5th hour, we brought in Robert Bess, whom I've never met. I'd investigated with the Constantinos and Chris Flemings, and they always do amazing work, and got amazing results that night at the asylum. But the first time I met Robert Bess was the moment I met him live on camera. For some reason, we had never crossed paths during the preparation for the show, so I was meeting him in front of millions of people. It was risky, especially because the stress of the unknown could trigger a migraine. But I figured it was worth the risk because he brought a new piece of technology to the show, and from what I had heard, it got results. Looking back on that night, it wasn't the best idea. I think it was Dave Schroeder who told me about Bess and his Parabot device, a chamber large enough to hold a human, flanked by large electric Tulsa coils. It is supposed to be able to attract and contain the electromagnetic energy created by spirits. Dave sent me a video of the device in action, and it looked really interesting. It looked and sounded like something from Ghostbusters, but it came from a credible source. So I said, yes, let's bring him on the live show. I love experimenting with new technologies and techniques, and this thing was pretty captivating. Could it really capture and hold a spirit? A few days before the live show, the production crew had a couple of incidents with the Parabot that they told me about. While it was sitting in a halfway of the Trans Alley lunatic asylum, the glass on the inside of the device cracked. Bess explained this as angry ghosts that didn't like the device and were trying to sabotage it actually got to step inside the Parabot and see the cracks. Another day, the fluorescent lights about the Parabot came crashing down on it unexpectedly. So I was really amped to get this thing on the show and work with Bess. I met Bess on set, decked out in his cowboy hat and long leather coat, in the middle of the night in front of the world. He fired up the device, and I was immediately concerned about the sheer amperage coming off of it. It was like he was trying to resurrect Frankenstein's monster with massive jolts of electricity. The Parabot made a sound every few seconds, boom, 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 and I could feel the shock waves in the air every time it fired. Clearly it had power. It was like the human version of a bug zapper, and I was waiting for one of us to get electrocuted. I seriously thought one of us was going to get killed by the thing, especially when Bess said to me, "Don't get within 3 feet of it. Getting incinerated on live TV would not be good." But while this thing was pumping out electricity, I could feel the environment change. The air was supercharged, and since spirits are thought to be made of electromagnetic energy. I thought maybe this was a great invention and we were going to see some results. Bess said that when the door opened, the ghosts would go towards the energy and he would capture them in the pod by closing the door. I thought, okay, let me see this. So we let Bess do his thing, and I will say that legitimately strange things started happening. Nick said that he felt something grabbing his leg, so I took a still shot of his leg and captured a huge white anomaly. It was like a spirit was being dragged toward the parabot and was grabbing Nick's leg to avoid being sucked in. Then I took another picture down the hallway we were in and captured a green manifestation moving toward the parabot. Aaron started freaking out because he was standing close to the coils and felt like the device was messing with him internally. So I pushed him back and told him to keep his distance because none of us knew what the side effects of this thing were. It was an experiment, and we all know how horribly wrong an experiment can go and how quickly it can turn. I was feeling pretty good about the parabot, and best when it all went all went bad. Something hit the floor, and it was loud enough to make Nick, Aaron, and me jump. I had no idea that the EMF detector that was in Bess's hand had left his hand, hit the floor, and slid down the hallway. All I knew was that something had hit the ground, and we all reacted. It wasn't until after we had finished with Beth and the parabot and moved on to the final hour of the show to investigate an abandoned hospital that we got the bad news from the guys back at the nerve center. It appeared that Robert Bess had thrown the device. Zach, listen, man, Bruce said in my earpiece. We reviewed the X camera footage and the night vision footage and the static footage from the robotic camera, and it really looks like the EMF detector was thrown. No way, I thought. We were almost across the finish line, and this news stopped me in my tracks. Then Dave Schroeder's voice came across my earpiece. Yeah, this looks really convincing that he threw it. They asked if I wanted Dave to say something to the audience from the nerve center, and I agreed. I told them to have Dave word it in a way that made it seem suspect and to suggest that it was not paranormal. Dave delivered the perfect NFL analogy when he said, "Was this intentional grounding?" They then asked if I wanted to confront Bess about the incident. Hell yes, I said. Unfortunately, that meant cutting the last investigation short because we were on live TV and had a time limit. But it was worth it to resolve the issue. We planned a final goodbye on camera with all of our guests like Pat Sajak does on Wheel of Fortune, but they gave me an extra 3 minutes to confront Bess afterward. It was going to be uncomfortable, but my reputation and that of everyone else who had worked on the show was on the line. It had to be done publicly and immediately. I knew it was important to send a message to everyone that we have high standards for our investigations. I never condone behavior like that, and since I was in charge of the investigation, it was my responsibility to say something about it on the spot. At the end of the show, I was interviewed by the host, Dean Haglund, the dude from the X-Files, and then I went up to Bess and asked him face to face what had happened. I told him that I hadn't seen the video, but everyone was telling me that it looked like he had thrown the EMF detector. He denied it, but days later, when I reviewed the evidence, it seemed pretty clear that he had thrown the device. This pissed me off back then and still pisses me off to this day. Robert Best tarnished what was otherwise a great investigation. Forget that it was a live TV show and the production crew and Travel Channel exclusive, I can't really talk right today, were there. We brought Bess into our crew to do paranormal research and he violated our trust, which disrespected us and everything we had worked for. It was disappointing because so many people worked so hard to make it a great event and everything else had gone off with a hitch. I take a personal responsibility for bringing Bess on the show and therefore anything he did as our guest. So as soon as I saw the video and knew that he'd thrown it, I was upset with myself. Even though 95% of the show went perfectly, I still felt like I'd let everyone down, but I also believed that I did the right thing in calling him out. If I hadn't, then it would have been made Ghost Adventures a party to the crime. In the end, we turned a negative into a positive. That's when the migraine finally hit. So that is it for the day. If you like stories, well, if you like reading like this and like read alouds, then let me know. Comment in the comments below. Hit that notification so you get notified when I make a new video. And subscribe to my channel. And also, I also got my own merch coming out right now, or it's out already. The link should be in the bottom, so if you want some of that, go cop that. Go get some of that. And until next time, everybody, sweet nightmares. I sure to say to all a good night.